before that. So before I spotlight my book, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some florals I made in loosely. Um, and these are all great examples. In fact, if you say watercolor florals on Pinterest, you are likely to see loose flowers. Very likely to see loose flowers. It's very popular. It's visible to everyone? Awesome.
Popsicles.
Okay. So I was just trying a few loose florals. This is the kind of stuff you will see on Pinterest. Very it has its form, but it is also not you can clearly see there is no pencil marking. There is no pencil marking for the outline of your flower, the leaf, and all that. And if you have followed certain floral artists who have specifically worked at only whose work is only watercolor florals, you will notice that when you make more and more florals, you develop your own style of doing it. Okay, so as much as you would like to copy somebody's style, okay, like for example, um, have you heard of Sushma Hegde? She makes wonderful watercolor wildflowers, and her specialization is just wildflowers. Imagine that is like going to an extent of really refining your area of interest. So she does just wildflowers, and they're very very pretty. And her style, her loose style, is so what shall I say? So appealing, you know. You see it anytime you see it. First of all, I know it's like for example, I'll tell you, when you see Aditi's leaves, have you seen the way Aditi makes leaves? Now, almost anytime you see Aditi's leaves, you can spot Aditi's work, right? You can say, oh, that looks like Aditi's leaves, right? So that's how you can almost spot Sushma Hegde's work. When you look at the flower and the way in which the leaf has been drawn or the petal has been cut, you can make out, oh, this is this one style. And maybe you will come close to mimicking it, but you just can't get exactly what she's doing. Okay, and you should not. My point is also that you should not always mimic. It is not for the sake of making sure that yours looks identical to somebody else. You can mimic their way of using a brush or certain strokes, but after some time, as you make more florals, you will decide that, oh, this works for me and this is something I like. Okay. Another artist, by the way, is Jolly Poa. If you've heard of Jolly Poa, she's a Filipino Filipino artist, I think. She's amazing at roses. She does so many roses. You know, I mean, over time, you can just see it's she's like specialized in roses, loose roses. Okay, something that many of us love actually, but are not always comfortable with making roses. Okay, so here are some I tried just for our class because I wanted to see if we could do some Indian florals. Why? Because these are plants we see more often. And Indian florals, I don't want to say they don't lend themselves to being painted, but they are different. So what happens is you don't see many artists trying to do this. You see many artists doing all the foreign flowers or flowers from abroad, like poppies and what is that favorite one? Everybody loves to make peonies. Peonies. They just love peonies, right? And peonies are like glorified, like very flamboyant roses. So peonies and roses, I also love making them. They're very, very pretty. But they're not Indian. They're definitely not Indian. Okay. Indian flowers, I don't know what it is, but they are dainty, I find. Very cute, small, many of them. We don't usually have very many big, huge, humongous flowers that are very. So I think something to do with the nature of the land as well. I think the flowers are very dainty and very pretty on a plant. But I'm not very sure if our flowers make excellent arrangement kind of flowers, you know, the kind that you can put into a bunch on a into a vase. For the vases, we usually reserve ourselves to, you know, gladioli, roses, carnations, and that's it. We do not take any of our flower bearing plants into vases. Okay, so these what I did were the ones that grow on actual plants, and on their own also they look very pretty. There's nothing wrong with them. You know, these ones, I love these flowers. They are. Is my screen not clear? Yeah, it's not clear. Hold on, let me see if I can. Yeah, it's not
The
clear.
lantana, they grow on a bush in different colors, sometimes yellow and red, sometimes white and red and
That's right.
white and all kinds.
Also, that little bunch itself has got
Yeah,
yellows and pinks and yellows
yeah,
and red
Yes.
and
orange. And you can fit
yeah,
them into each other
yeah,
individually. Yeah,
absolutely.
that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you think about it, you can't find any use for that plant in a vase. It really doesn't make sense. It looks good on a bush. Leave it on.
Yes.
So that type. But even then, if you take a small section and you do it on a card or something, it looks pretty. It looks nice. There's nothing wrong, and they are unique because no one wants to paint these. No one wants to paint these. So we could consider doing some of these Indian flowers, of course, along with our roses and peonies as well. Okay. So as reference, I will send you a few flowers I downloaded. Um, I'm going to send you a whole bunch actually. Yeah.
I took out the Shushma Heritage book. And
What's
this
that?
is it.
Sushma's book, no? Yeah.
Yes.
This is an amazing book. Huh? I mean, it's
I'll
worth
show
it.
some pages here and see the work.
Yeah, look at her flowers. Just look at her flowers. All in watercolor. And they're very pretty. So
Yes.
another thing I've noticed with Sushma's flowers, because they are wildflowers, they are, wildflowers stem from the ground up. Yeah. So because they can't be really bunched into a bouquet or a spread, they are nice for areas where, like, suppose you're doing it on a surface, from down up, they look great. But when we want to do, suppose, a middle composition, a floral composition in the middle, or we want to do a floral composition only on the border, then you have to be careful which ones you're picking, right? Because gladioli or any of those vertical ones, you can't put them hanging from here, right? They have to be ground up only, right? So those kind of things are considerations you have to make if you want your layout, your composition to look different from what Sushma has done. In most cases, it's coming from down. It's all coming ground. So yeah, that's a good book, huh, if you want to try it out. Have you all got the photos I've sent? Marigold.
Yeah,
Horrible.
we've got the reference images.
Yeah.
What did you ask? Sorry.
You've
Yeah.
got them, right? So you're looking at these references. These are some of the Indian flowers that I could see. Indian paintbrush, very lovely flower to do as a wildflower. I'll run through this one also. A standard rose, but the one that opens out like this. These are very pretty as well. These are very easy brush strokes. Very, very easy. You look at them and you can see your brush going vertical, making those leaf-like lines, right? You can nasturtiums. Nasturtiums are also very lovely. I only pick them because their leaves are so cute, right? Not so much the flower, the leaf. So the combination of the flower and the leaf together also is a very important factor. Okay, so a few factors to keep in mind. I'll just pen them down. A few factors to keep in mind when you are picking a flower is the composition. Okay, and in composition, you have to consider not just the flower. A flower may look good, but its leaves may not be great. So in composition, you have to consider the flower in combination with leaves, because usually we do not leave a flower isolated. And because we have to do this, if any of you have observed floral artists who actually do floral arrangements, those Japanese style floral arrangements and all that, they are always thinking of what goes well with this flower. Sometimes the flower's leaf itself is not so great, right? It may be those spindly thin leaves that make no filler, add no fullness, and the flower is beautiful. So what do they do then? They pick leaves from other plants which are very, very pretty, very impressive, right? So, for example, a rose alone on its own doesn't make much sense. But if you club a rose with those big fat, uh, I don't know not money plant, like snake's tongue and those, sorry, mother-in-law's tongue and those snake plants and all those big leafed plants, they go very well, beautifully, right? So flower in combination with leaf is very important when you are picking a composition. Okay. The other thing that you have to remember is the position of the flower. Position, when I mean position, I mean the, or I would say rather, let's say angle. I won't say position, angle. All floral arrangements are not flat. So all flowers in nature also are not flat. You're not looking at them always top to down. Sometimes you're looking at them sideways. Sometimes you're looking from the top, from an angle. So capturing the angle is very important. Otherwise, what will happen? You will end up doing making a floral design that looks like a print, like on a flat surface. It has no dimension. Okay, so for the dimension to come, especially when you're putting it into a combination of into a composition where you have many flowers, many leaves and petals, a few angles here and there changed will make it look like it has some depth. Okay, so the position and angle of the flower is important. You have to worry about foreshortening. This is where foreshortening, if you heard the Aditi mention this, is very important. When a flower is tilted on a side, some petals will appear bigger, some petals will appear smaller, although the petal size has not changed, right? It's just the angle in which we are seeing. Okay, so these are a few things to keep in mind. We will get on to the actual drawing of flowers. A good thing to have is a brush with a good point. I think all of us may be using these Camlin brushes, but you will also get some brushes which and they come to a good point. By the way, Camlin brushes also come to a good point, but not as pointy as some other brushes. I'll just show you a few. The reason being, with a pointy brush, you can have water retention in the brush, but at the same time, the tip will give you a nice fine line. So let me just wet this brush, show you. At a point, all I can get is this much on a fat brush. Huh? I need a fat brush because I want adequate water holding capacity. If I use a thinner brush, I will not have enough water. So now with this brush, I can make a stroke that is pressed down and thin. You can make a stroke. I'm not saying you can't. But with this brush, what happens is, see, I press down, it doesn't flatten much. And then it becomes a little thin. You can do this stroke many times over. See, now sideways if you go, it flattens nicely. Curves are good on this brush. So figuring your brush is a good thing to do before you start a floral exercise. Okay. Okay, so this is my Camlin brush. I'm going to take another brush, which is the silver velvet brush. Okay, this many floral artists love to use this, and I understand why, because I now have it, and so I know why they say it, because the point on this brush is super thin. In spite of the brush being like a size 12, huh? This is a size.
Which one is this called, Susan? You're not very loud today, but yeah, tell me. I can't hear you very well today.
Oh, you can't hear
Little
me?
faint, no, Baba?
Oh, 1 minute. You know what? I know what I've done wrong. I should just put the. Hold on.
My iPad is on full volume, but not managing. What?
Is it better now?
Much better. Silver what?
Silver black velvet.
Wow. Where do you get this?
I think KDS art store and
At Arts, it's a normal brush that you can get, right? You don't have to order it from somewhere else or something.
you will have to order it.
Okay. And what number are you using for this? I mean, which are the two numbers if I ordered it, I should have, you know, I mean, like just
so
one
yeah,
yeah.
correct. I know what you mean. So numbers, this is now, you know, the etching is gone 106. This is a number 8. A number 4 and a number 8.
Okay.
A number 4 and a number 8 will be more than enough. Actually, you don't need more than that.
Yeah, because as you said, the brush I have, the camel ones, you press them, they don't become broad. I can start with a very fine tip, but they don't become a nice fat petal. It'll give me a thin petal.
Absolutely. So that is exactly why I actually invested in this, because I wanted to do loose florals. When I was doing in detail, I did not need it at all, and I still don't need it. But look at this now. Okay, if I press this down, and so it gives me so many options to make leaves and petals and direction. See, if I turn it, I get a nice point. So the fact that it could give me a point really worked in my favor for florals, for loose florals, for loose florals. So the same brush, if I decide to show you its thickness, this is how thick it can get. Okay, this is a size 8. This is how thick it can get. And if I show you how thin it can get, see, the same brush. That's because the tip is that way. That is the way it is made. Okay, so this is a great investment if you are into making loose florals very often. I am, and I found it very, very good. I definitely found it very, very good. So this is one thing you could consider as a good investment. Even if you just get one size, do enough with that one size. That's also fine. 4 or 8. Then another brush that many floral artists love to use, and rightly so, is this brush. It's called a filbert brush. I don't know if you've seen a filbert brush. It's roundish at the tip. It's roundish at the tip. I've got a very small size here. Is my screen frozen? Yeah. Okay. See, filbert. Filberts come in different types of, see, this is also filbert. Okay. Now these brushes, why they lend themselves to to florals is because of the round over here, the curve over here. Okay. So what happens is I get a lovely round first this thing. See, I shouldn't use this. I should use this one. This is not the best. Water retention has such a big part to play in this in loose florals. I'll show you this. See, you can almost see the petals forming nicely because the edges are curved. See? So a filbert brush is a great brush for these kind of, what do you call it? The flowers that have rounded tips, ends where the petals are nice and rounded. Filbert brush is excellent for those. Okay. So anyway, these are just some brush options. I maintain that you should be able to paint with just a round brush, ideally. Okay. These extras are just to make your work a little better, but it doesn't mean that you can't paint without them. A lot of people feel like, oh, if I don't have that brush, I can't paint. No. And so I am going to start to paint today only with the camera because I want to show you that it is possible. Okay. Next thing.
What size brush are you using in Camel this morning?
Camel, I'm using number 10.
Okay.
I'm using a number 10 because I want a lot of water. I want it to retain water. So the smaller brushes are great for detail when I want to add lines and things like that. But if I want it to adequately hold water, I have to take a 10 or a 12. Now I'm using a 10. Next thing, learn how to mix some paint. Take your paint off. Now we are using cakes, and usually pigment does not come out happily or at least adequately with cakes. Okay. So you will need to get into this habit for loose florals to make a little bit of effort to get some paint ready. And a little bit is not too little. Huh? It's quite a bit. See, I need a pool. I actually, by the time I put in like 2 or 3 big leaves like this now, see. The pool will start to get over. Okay. So make sure that you start to pull out more paint and deposit it over here so that it's readily available and you're not going in for every brush stroke going back into the cake to make more. I'll show you a few brush strokes on this paper because this paper does not hold water so well. We'll do a few brush strokes and then we'll move on to when we get to the actual flowers, no, and putting them into some sort of a composition. We'll go on to watercolor paper if you have. Neeta, do you have watercolor paper on you? Like, do you have
Watercolor paper?
watercolor paper is slightly different from drawing
Like
paper.
300 GSM or 260.
Yeah.
I think you had bought some sheets now.
See,
Those
this
are 300. I don't know. I'll have to check.
200 these are. Yeah, that's better than what we are doing with 140.
yeah,
Artist-
our paper, our drawing paper that we use for normal class is about 130, 140
Yeah,
GSM.
yeah.
That is the thickness of
So
your
this,
paper.
so
Yeah.
this is better, isn't it?
I'll
Yeah,
just
So this kind of paper is good. Why? Because it will dry fast, one. The other thing is that you can go back in with more water and nothing will happen to the paper. It won't buckle or missing. Now I have taken 200 GSM because this is cheaper. Simple reason. It's cheaper. I get just more sheets and it serves the purpose. 200 is more than enough. But if you are making actual, like, what do you call it, a larger thing like an A4 or doing some serious work that needs to be framed and things like that, I would definitely say don't go below 300 GSM. This is great just for cards. I love using this for cards because it folds so well, you know. I see. I've got this. These are A5 sheets ready already. A5. So what I do normally, they're quite thin now because they are 200 GSM. They're very thin. And so I just, all I have to do is fold it. Literally fold it here, this size. And I get a card. See, I get a nice, usable, thick enough, card. And what I don't have to worry about is the paper. It will, whatever I do now here is not going to go on the inside, buckle my paper, tear, nothing's going to happen. So I love using these for cards, the 200 GSM. I always have a pack ready so that I don't have to cut and waste time. Just fold it, use it. Okay. But we'll get to that at a later point. If you don't have it, Neeta, don't worry.
I have, but it is an A3 size.
Oh, it's quite big.
Yeah.
It's quite big.
So
So
what
it's
do I
okay for today. No, for today, leave it. If you can you by any chance cut the A3 into an A4?
uh,
If you don't have
A
a cutter, let it be. You know what? Just do it on normal paper. It's okay. We are just learning today. So
okay.
after you get a little better, you can use that paper.
Okay.
Okay. So let that be. For now, let's get on to our flowers. I cannot stress enough this concept of draw them as you see them. I know Aditi uses that line very often, but it is very, very important um, for loose florals. Oh, what is wrong? Yeah. Now let's look at this flower. Okay. This is a cluster of flowers that are very easy to make with your brush. Maybe you don't even need such a big brush. We can probably consider using a smaller size, any of the smaller sizes in maybe a 4. Just see what I have. A 4 or something. Yeah. I don't have a 4, but I'll use something equivalent to a 4. Okay. And what we need to do here is we need to draw the shape that we see. So the shape here is a 4-petal flower around orangish in color, orange, and maybe activate your scarlet. Okay. Orange and scarlet, keep them both activated. And the whole point is the shape is this way. It's a pointy flower, right? Barely touching at the center. Quite a simple stroke if you think of it. Right? What am I? Okay. Now, next thing you do is dip your brush into water. This is something you have to do regularly for loose florals. Dipping in water will make the pigment lighter, right? I mean, the paint will naturally become lighter. Then while you're painting, dip back into pigment and let it become darker. This has to become a very organic way of drawing. Now, if over here, this one seems like like a solid color, a solid orange. We went in with a solid orange. But this one, can you see that I have light shades and dark shades? And this will happen only if you are adequately adding water to your paint. So another bit of advice, don't try and paint directly from the cake. Make a little puddle in your palette and then start. Let's make another sharpish shape. Then touch into the cake and put in some dark paint such that you have a nice uneven tone. We're not worrying about the centers. Huh? If you look closely at this flower, it has a small, like a dot of a center. That's all it has. Now, how do we arrange this pile? It's great to draw them separately, but how do we arrange them like this? Let's draw a few flowers the way we see them on the side. Now, I want you to draw this one. You see this flower right at the corner here? This is not facing you. It is facing an angle away from you. Now, you're going to have to draw this as you see it. So, over here, I see a short end there, slightly longer here on both sides. And then on this side, it kind of becomes a little fat and short. See? And that gives you another angle. Let's take yet another angle, a little tricky angle. I want you to try this one, this top flower here. Okay. If I were to take a pencil and mark it for you, the flower is going to sit like this. Here, 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 here. It's going to sit very funnily like this. Okay. Whereas what we were drawing over here, this one would have been sitting like this. See? So watch these angles. Now I want to also look at this one, this corner one here. Okay. This corner one is sitting at an angle like this. So figure the angle before you put the paint down. And don't worry about matching the light and dark according to the colors here. Just do them organically. If I want to do this, I'm going to do this. Press down, get that point. And that's it. I'm going to make the flat one. Move a little quick. Now, this is also important. Why? Because sometimes we love to sit and do this. I'll show you what we'll do. We'll do this. Then from the other side, do this. Match the end. Okay. It's a very normal thing for many of us, especially those of us who are detail oriented, to do something very, very slowly and neatly. Okay. And that's how slow and neat will look. Nothing wrong with it. But in loose florals, push yourself to do this in one stroke. At best, two. Okay? Push yourself. Because what's going to happen is then you're going to accept that the shape will not be always the way you want it. Right? It's a mind thing. So tell yourself that it's okay. Whatever I can do in two strokes, let me try and do it in two strokes. So one or two strokes. So one. This is not bad. I just need one more here. That's it. 1 and 2. That's it. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. Done. So this is little off. That's okay. Leave it. Yeah. We've done a few of these flowers. Let's take up the leaf. It's a nice big leaf. And you have a pool of green over here. which you've already made. And it's a bit watery, and that's good. Now we want to make a leaf. Imagine that the leaf comes all the way here behind the flower. So this is the shape of your leaf. So let's try and again in one stroke, get the shape of the leaf. Can you all see my sheet? Till the paint runs out. Then I dip in again and I press down. I get my curve over here, bring that in. That's it. And then I go in one more time to fill up. Sometimes when I fill up, I may leave some white spaces and it is fine. The big win in loose florals is the white space. Try not to achieve give in to the desire to fill up all space with paint. Loose florals are very, very lovely when you leave white spaces in between. So even here, this gap in between the petals, that circle in the middle, the white space makes so much difference. Let me try another petal, okay? I'm trying to see if I can try another. I will try similar petal, but I'm not looking at it. I'm just making it up. Press it down. Take some more paint. Press it a bit like this, wonky. And then that's it. So I have a little bit of mark. Or sometimes I may not have a mark. I may cover it up. It's okay. Some petals could have a white line through it. Not white line, it's fine. But more than anything, look at the way the paint has spread. All potchy, right? Some of it pooling here, pooling there. Leave it. That's the charm of loose florals. Okay. Now that we've done just these two leaves and flowers, let's see if we can make what we have already put down. Have you all put it down like this, somewhat like this? I don't know. I just by chance happened to put it this way. But if you feel that this is still looking like a cohesive set, let's make the whole thing a flower. Yeah, let's make it a bunch. So I'm going to go back in with a little bit of orange and start filling in all the gaps quickly, fast. Wherever I can, put a flower. Dip into water, dip into paint, and try and do it in one stroke. See, look at my strokes. Quick, fast, not giving myself time. See? If you feel it's getting too pigmented, put in some water, make them light. I'm not being extra particular. That's the point. Whenever I feel pigment is less, I put in. Now this flower here. See, I barely even made the other two petals. Why? Because I think it's sitting behind. Let it be behind. Imagine it's there. Over here, I'll add one. 1, 2, 3, and that's all. Over here, 1, 2. See? You can go in and wherever it's wet, you can still drop in some paint and it will just bleed. Bleeding is a lovely quality of loose flowers. Letting it bleed. Some flowers you may only see there one petal, only one petal sticking out. That's it. You're going to imagine the rest of the petals are there. So those are like suggestions. Oh, there's a flower there behind. Imagine there is a flower. We can only see 2 of its petals. That's it. See, only 2 petals here. Something has gone behind. That's it. I have managed to get something that looks like a bit of a bunch. Okay. Now, because 2 of my leaves are also sticking out of this, let me put one more leaf over here. This time, I'd like the leaf to be partially under. So that means I'm not going to reach a tip at this end. At this end, I'm going to be fat. And I'm only showing this part of the leaf. Okay, so these two leaves are full, but this leaf is half. I'll put one more leaf here, a small leaf. Now, one more thing, if you look at this flower, just for like a guidance, you can sometimes see some stalks. See, it's not always just the flower. You can see a few stalks. So wherever you have gaps in your bunch here, think logically. All these flowers are centered somewhere around here, right? This is, let's say, the center of the bunch. It's all kind of coming from this point. So is there some way you can put stalks that look like they're coming towards the center? So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is you have to use a little bit of your brain. So I will have this stalk over here like this, but the flower here is going to have a stalk going out like this. See? Then this flower is going to have a stalk from here. This will have a stalk from here. You have to kind of make them radial. If you're putting stalks, they have to be radial, coming towards the center, not odd places. Now you may have a stalk, two stalks next to each other, one stalk here, one in between here, one here. But they should follow that radial pattern. Not everything will have a stalk. See? Okay. Well, I don't know about you, but if you have seen this flower, sometimes it even has just a bulb. Have you noticed? One or two will not have flowered. They would be just bulbs. Okay. So if you feel like adding a bulb, like see like this, a small bulb and a stem. And usually it's not alone. It has a stem with some other bulb sitting there. So here, let me add one bulb here. This is my imagination of this flower that I've seen in real life. I have noticed these bulbs, so I'm just adding that element a few places. Okay. The next thing to worry about is a stalk. Can you see a stalk in your reference photo? Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, because a leaf, now in this case, a leaf is covering the stalk. Okay. So I'm not going to worry about the stalk. I'm just going to keep my composition at flower and leaves. That's it. Bus. I'll keep all my leaves at the bottom. No more. Now, at this point, no, you can call your exercise complete, but somehow the goodness of the florals and this is something that you have to keep in mind. The goodness of loose florals comes from even the dark shades, and the dark shades make a real difference. What you have put in here is, even though it has some shades, watery, less watery, etc., it's still all almost the same orange and the same green. Now, use your mind to darken this green in any way you like. Sometimes it is by taking another green altogether, like taking a dark green altogether. See, it's a different green. I can take it directly and put it in this way, put some stems, put some veins, only a few indicative veins. See? But one thing that I have noticed and that I find is like a very good thing to do is, instead of changing the green to another green altogether, like maybe something that is altogether different, why don't you use the same green and darken it with some other color? And this, I found from, I think, I'm not sure who I got it from. There's a person who suggested, take your green and apply the color of the flower into that green. It's a very odd thing. Now, orange and green will actually give me brown, right? And I don't want brown on my leaves. But a tad bit of orange into my regular green, just a small bit, will straight away change the green. See? So I did not use another green. I just put a little bit of orange into the existing green I used for the leaf. and I put a few veins. That's it. If logic will tell you that as the leaf approaches the plant, the shadow of the flower is going to fall on the leaf, which means this part of the leaf could be dark. Correct? Logical? It could be darker than the top of the leaf, which is facing outward. Correct? So keep those kind of things in mind when you are putting in these darker shades. Now, straight away, your leaf is looking like, there is some shadow, there is something. It's not a flat leaf. Okay? Do the same thing with your flowers. Now, what I'm going to do with the flowers is I'll take the same orange. I'll put a little bit of scarlet into it, little bit. And that will change its hue a bit. And I'm going to put this into the center for the center hole, the circle in the center. See? Only where you can, where the flower doesn't have a center that you can see, don't put it. Now, for example, here, no, here I can see it. But here I have no idea what's happening, so let me not add it. Add it only where you know there is clearly a center visible. There's a center missing. Here. Where else? Here. Here. See? And while you're at it, you could even put an extra layer on any one petal. See, I'm going in and I'm putting a little bit of that dark hue onto a petal. Here and there. Now the flowers start to look a little bit like they have some depth. And that's it. You have, I don't even know the name of this flower. I should check what it is. How are those bunches looking for you? Let me see 1 minute, Janita. Hold on. What size brush, Janita? Which size are you using?
4, I think, and another one was.
You used 4 of the camel set, the S68?
I have a grabby. I use this one.
Okay. So that is why your petals have become very thin. Very thin, yeah, because your brush is that thin, and so it is giving you thinner petals. No problem, nothing wrong with it. But why don't you try this exercise, at least make a few with a thicker brush, just to see whether you can get more, what do you call it, fuller leaves, if you can. Okay, try. It will give your bunch a different look. Okay. All right. Eileen, how's yours? Oh, not bad. Not bad. So what happened? Was there a bleed at one point? You're on mute, Elaine. You're on mute. Oh.
No. First, my brush is, I have to do it with 2 strokes. It doesn't flatten too fat.
Oh, okay.
It's thin,
all right.
but besides that, I suddenly got this brainwave I was fiddling about to make a very dark, to fill up the background with dark.
Okay.
And then I changed my mind because it wasn't happening, so I just smudged it up. But now I know it doesn't work. I mean, that till it dries. What I want, like in this picture.
I know.
You know what like
I know what you
negative
want.
painting, like the
Right.
negative painting, like that. Oh,
Absolutely. I get it. I get what you were trying. No, and negative painting.
I just
is
thought,
possible.
can I put in some dark things at the back, like the petals? There's some
Yeah.
flowers which are darker. The top ones are light, and then the back ones are a
Yes.
little darker, and another layer. So
Correct.
this was just rough. When we actually do it on a card, I can plan a little better, and do it
Yes.
according to the picture. Here, I was just trying out little shapes and
Correct.
getting
So
them
now,
to work.
now, if for what you're doing, for the exercise you are doing, which is very nice, it's a great idea, but just think logically, stop and
Yeah.
think. Now, in these
Yeah.
kind of flowers, if you want to add darkness in between, okay, it will have to be necessarily negative painting. Okay, it will have to be. There is no other way to get the dark in the center, because this is watercolor, right? Because you can't go from dark to light, you have to go from light to dark. So Because it's watercolor, you can do that. Now, if you were using something like acrylic, oil, or gouache, any of those things, you could actually put a full dark circle, and then take the lighter paint and make all these flowers on top of the dark circle. Simple as that. It is actually quite simple, almost brainless. You can just do it, and that's it. You've got your picture perfectly. But with watercolor, you have to do negative. So if you were to, and so it's not difficult. Huh? I'm just going to do it in a small patch.
Yeah, I know. Let me watch you. I know what you
Yeah.
mean.
So
And I was
I'm just going to think it out. Now I'm going to
Yeah.
see how it works out. Let me see, because
Yeah.
in my head, of course, it's all great
Yeah.
ideas.
With me also, it was a very great idea in my head.
Okay, I'm going to let it dry, and I'm going to come back and see whether I can maintain. No, then what I'll have to do is I'll have to take some help with a pencil, because now I don't know what to darken. After this full thing dries, I'm going to have to see where my remaining petals come. So I have to give myself some guide in terms of where do these petals come, and then go back in and darken the gaps between the petals. Yeah, but I'll do it. Why not? See, everything
Susan,
can be done. You have to
I
do it.
would have to kind of vaguely draw out a little bit of
Yes.
my flowers and
Yeah.
then go in with that, you know.
With the yeah. That there is
I'm
no
sure you
worry.
can do it without drawing them first, but
No.
I would
Even
have
even
to for
even if I
negative.
do that, no, Elaine, what you visualize in your head and what eventually comes down on paper are two entirely different things. Okay, so now it has happened to me many times. I have drawn an outline, and I said, okay, this is my outline for a rose. I want the rose to fit in this space, and I want the rose also to be sitting on its side. So I want all the whorls of the rose to come like this. Okay, on one side. You can see my screen, no? I'll just zoom it in. Hold on.
No,
Spotlight. I'll spotlight.
I can't see your.
Yeah, I can only see, now I can see.
Ah.
Sorry.
So this circular bit is my rose, where I want to place my rose. But I don't want my rose to look upward. I want it to look sideways. See? This way. Okay. In my head, this drawing is enough. I've got my bearings. But when I start putting brush to paper, it's an altogether different matter. So I want it here. I put my strokes very happily, this way, that way, this way, that way, this way. Okay, I'm just playing around, like they say, playing. When I come to this point, I start to feel like something's off. What is happening? How do I get now I still have this much of flower left and nothing on the top to put. So now what's happening? So what I do very often, this happens to me very often. I start compensating for that little bit. I put a little more here, little more here, little more. Okay. Then I put some more here, some more here. And then I go and correct it a little bit and I put, okay, little bit more, little bit more, little bit more. Now you see the angle of the rose has changed. Okay. By doing that little bit more, my center has moved. And now I have a rose looking up at me. So it's not anyone's fault. You just need to stop doing that extra bit and do what you saw earlier. So now I will do the same thing. Now I do here, center, put my brush strokes around. And now I stop putting any more strokes on the other side. That's it. What was there is there. All my strokes will be now only here. Whatever. See, still the urge to just go there and put one more little line. What if we just put a little bit more? No. As long as you leave it this way, and then of course add in your green at the bottom. Now see, a sideways rose means you can see the stem, this part. It has turned on its side, right? But you have to resist the urge to do this. That is very, very hard. Our mind, you know how Aditi tells us, our mind tells us one thing, and our hands want to do something else altogether. Mind is saying, "Arey, there is more
Yes.
petal on that side. There is.
Yeah.
Show the petal. Show the petal." So the eye has seen what it has seen, and you don't need to. Mind doesn't need to interfere with that. Okay. So shall we try another flower? While this dries, I'm going to try another flower, and probably this time I'll try it on watercolor paper. Which flower should we try?
This third one is very nice, hard but nice. Yeah,
Marigolds?
that's the one that,
This one,
yeah,
no?
that
Yeah.
one. Or if
So,
something simpler, maybe we could do the
no,
the
let's try this.
rose. Okay.
Let's try this. Let's try this.
Yeah.
So with watercolor, what we have to keep in mind is when we see a flower that has many colors, light to dark, you have to remember to first see the light. We are going to first put in the light. And on top of that, we will put dark. There's two ways to put the dark. One is to blend it and put it. So while the light is still wet, we go in with the dark and we blend it. So the reason I say that you can do it to both those ways is because it depends on what you're trying to draw. I'm going to again now go back in with, let's say a blue, just to show you the difference. See, you can take a wash color. Okay. And let's say I'm drawing the petal of a lily or something like that. You can do this and immediately go in with a darker color while it is wet and drop that wet in dark color here. Okay. This is going to give you a different feel. When it dries, it is going to still look quite blended, quite blended. But suppose you decide to do something like same thing. Oh, this is too dark. I should have made it light. Now let this dry, completely dry. Okay, when we'll come back to it. What is going to happen when we use the darker shade on top of this? We can add the details. We are not going to get a blend. So you have to realize now, are we trying to get the blend, the effect on the same leaf gradually, or are we trying to demarcate with the black, with the red darker color? If we are trying to demarcate with the darker color, then you have to let the light color dry. So in this case, in our picture here, you notice that the dark colors are demarcating the individual leaves, right? So we may not be able to drop in our dark color while the light is still wet. Yeah, just keep that in mind. That is one thing to bear in mind. We will put it in, but we will put it in so that we can use it to shape some parts of the leaf and bring the leaf out. Negative painting that we were talking about, right? I can actually do it here because this is dried. So here I'm going to give myself a guide. See? See my petal? Oh, can you see it? I think it's not visible. Can you see what I'm doing? Okay. So I'm now drawing my flower in, the one that I want to keep light. But I have to do this in pencil, otherwise I will not get it.
Yes, that's what I also said to you. I can't do it without
That's
the
it.
pencil marks.
So once you do this, then sorry, 1 minute. I just dropped some water. Yeah. Once you do this, then you can just go in with the darker color and shade in these bits. Something like this. See? But still, if you notice, the top flowers are looking a little bit like flat color, like one single color. So you'll have to wait for this dark shade to dry. Go in with another watery round so that some leaves are a little bit darker than the other leaves. Just a little bit. Others right now it's looking like the top layer is just like this light orange. Yeah. Okay. And that's it. And then, of course, you can put the centers in. You can still get what you were intending to get in. Right? The effect that you were intending to get. It is possible. Just a little bit of planning because it's watercolor. Yeah. But then what happens now? Why am now? A good thing you asked me this, because this now does not become very much a loose style. So that's the thing about loose flowers.
That's it. See, with loose, you have to just go in with your brush and
Yes, that's what I was saying. In loose, no, you are not the you're playing around with the white, royally
Yes,
putting in white where there is no white,
right, right.
right?
But
So there
that
is no
gives the
problem.
lightness of it, no? See, the
Yeah,
other one looks so solid and detailed. This one looks
yeah,
so light, even if there's
correct,
no white at the back, actually. But
correct.
it's perfect.
Absolutely. So the loose florals actually play so much with white. And they leave the white there, even though you are not seeing it in your reference photo. So that is why a lot of people will say, "Arey, but that doesn't look like the same flower." And that's fine. That's okay. That's just my interpretation of that flower, right? I interpreted it that way, then that's it. Serves my purpose. Similarly, somebody may look at this and say, "No, it doesn't really look like a rose." But that's what the loose floral is about. It's my interpretation of a rose. I see it as a rose. I'm fine with it, right? So don't be worried about giving that flower its unique what do you call it, that has to look exactly as it is botanically. You will not be botanically accurate in loose flowers. You will just give them impression. That's it. Okay, so same thing. I was talking to you over here. Now, if I want to go in with dark blue onto something that is already dark, now what I can do is there may be a flower where I would want to do this. Some kind of detailing. If I want to do that, my dark color has to go afterwards, not while the paint is still wet. Okay. Then there are many loose florals where they do this. They put a thick shade and then they indicate something like this, and that's it. They leave it like this, all funny. And that's fine. It's okay. Wet and dry, dry and dry. It's your choice how you want to do it. Okay. I will, but what I want to say is that this makes so much of a difference. It makes your flat looking flower a little more, brings in some character, I could say. Bring some character to your flower. Okay. Let's go in and try our, I think Shevanti it is. Today everything's turning out orange. So after this, we'll do some other color. Maybe we'll do sunflowers. Sunflowers are also very pretty.
That also will be yellowy orange.
Yeah, but little more yellow than orange. Right
Yeah.
now, I think I'm
But
looking quite.
this marigold, I mean, I can draw it and do it beautifully, but loose, I have no idea how to do.
Yeah. I mean, let's figure it out. Let's figure it out. I myself have not. I don't quite care for the marigold. The marigold. I don't quite care for it because I associate it with more like a garland flower than a potted, kind of flower. So I don't end up doing it much. This and carnations. Oh, carnations are so challenging if you decide to get picky about how you do it. Okay, let's give this some shape. Okay, I'm going to give this thing a rough shape.
Which one are we doing now, Susan?
This one. This is the marigold. We have one set of yeah. We
Yeah.
have, I think, one photo. I think the third one, which is
Yeah.
like this. Yeah.
Thank
I'm starting with the center flower. I'm going in with a light shade of gamboge and orange, mix of gamboge and orange. And I'm giving myself just an outline that I can see very, very loosely. Huh? It doesn't have to be perfect. Oh, there's a long stem here. That's it. One way that people will do is go wet on wet. And they'll say, forget the individual leaves. Okay. Many will say that. Forget the individual leaves, just drop in some paint here and there. So I'm going to do that as well. Let's see. Wherever I see the dark, I'm going to put in a little bit of a shape. So what I got is like a hodgepodge of color. Okay. While that is drying, sometimes in fact, many people love to put in their next shade, that is their green stalk, immediately. That's another very popular action. And when you do that, the green may go into the yellow may go into the green. Whatever happens, loose floral artist will tell you it was meant to be. And all these strokes are very loose. So here now I've noticed, my observation is that I like a nice dark green over here. See, so I just dropped in some green there. Whereas on the rest of the stalk, I don't want so much of green, so I'll just pick up some. Let me go and put in another flower. There's one flower behind. I'm going to go in with gamboge and orange. There's one flower over here, somewhere here. Press down your brush, put in some very rough strokes, get the shape of this. That's it. See? Let's put one more flower. One on this side, okay? So if you're looking at the picture, it looks somewhat like this. It looks like it's got things sticking out like this. Press down on your brush, make that shape, the general shape of a flower there. Okay. And finally, we have one more flower over here. So let's put that in stroke. Go back in, blend water, color. Now this part, no, be very free. Dip into yellow, dip into orange, do both. Don't pick only from one color. You want that variety to come in. Now, while it is wet, I want to go in with my slightly darker shade, which is orange and scarlet. Make that a mix. As wherever I see darkness on this side, little bit here. That's it. Then on this side, I see some darkness here, mostly at this part of the flower, very little on the top. And on this flower, I see it here, 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 almost at the ends of all the. Now this one will become a little blotchy because of the paint drying. So wherever you feel you want to pick up paint, pick it up. Clean your brush and touch it. See? And the next step is to put in the greens. So I'm using sap green. Can I see the stem on this one? Yes, I can. In fact, this has a bulb. Have you seen? Even this had a bulb, but we didn't see much of it. But this one has a clear bulb like this at the base, and then So let's put that in. Same thing here. I can see a bulge here. And then it goes sideways. To be able to paint loosely, hold your brush a little further away from the tip. Okay. Now this flower, no, I can't quite see anything because there's a leaf on top, so I'm not going to bother with that. Now let's go on to the leaves. Make enough sap green here. Actually, it's not sap green. It's more a darker green, like that emerald, maybe. No, viridian. Look at the leaf. Can you see the leaf on the side? Okay, this leaf I'm showing at the edge here. Okay, this leaf has a stalk which is coming down here, and then it's got these squiggly lines. I'm holding the brush so far away and just making squiggly lines. Suddenly there's one coming from here, squiggly lines, overlapping with another set of squiggly lines. Hold the brush far and put in those lines. See, the paint got over very fast. Even though I made a pool, the paint got over very fast. So this is the only downside to painting with, when you're painting with cakes, remember, you will run out of paint very fast. If you run out, the good thing is, this is loose florals. So you can go back in, dab more paint. Okay, I can't see the flowers too well anymore. The leaves too well. I know I can see one leaf coming out from here. And they are very short leaves, see? Because they are foreshortened this way. Then there is something sticking out here. Now I'm going to imagine this part I'm going to imagine. See? I'm just imagining that there's more here. Then where else? Some random leaves are sticking out here. Now I want to go on top of that with green, but just make sure it has dried. Don't go on top of it without making sure it's dry. So there's a leaf here. And there's one here. Something coming out from here. I can see definitely some stalk coming out. And the rest of it is just a blurred mess. What I can't see, I'm not even bothering. Somewhere here,
Yeah,
I'm
I
definitely...
got a blur mess.
Yeah. So where you can't see now, for example, this stalk here is going somewhere. We can't see it, but I'm going to logically end it somewhere, because otherwise what will happen is it'll come to here and then it'll be like, where is the rest of it? What? It didn't magically sprout from another plant, right? So you have to, it has to make logical sense. Everything has to go somewhere logical. That's probably it. I don't want to put I see a small little bud. I don't know if you can see it at the back of that flower there. There's a small bud, but you can't see the orange because it's hiding under the flower. But I can see the bud. So I'm just going to put that bud in here because I'd like the contrast of flower, leaf, and bud. See? It gives it character. Same here. Over here, there's a small thing sticking out like a bud. In fact, even here, I find some hair-like things. Few little strands of hair. If you want to capture it, capture it. Now we can go back into our flower with like a scarlet maybe, and use only the tip of your brush to give it a little bit of shape. Now you're defining it just a bit more. Only this flower, huh? Normally we don't do all this. For normal flowers, we don't bother with the details. We just leave it as a hodgepodge, and that's it. See? Some shape. Only what I can see, and I can't see much over here. As you go further up, it becomes light. So I don't want to get dark. Over here also, not much of dark, only a little bit. More spells. Over here, I can hardly see also. So I'm just going to put in. Paint is getting light. That's good. Now these, no, these have become too prominent for my liking. Let me go back in with a little bit. I'm dulling it down because I felt it was too dark. That's it. My flower has some character, but my leaves are looking all flat, all green. Okay. So if you want to correct that and put in some darker watery shades, go ahead and do that. It'll make a difference. So see, like this. Now one side of this base could be darker. See, you could add these kind of small details, just a bit of it. Now this makes it a little bit more vibrant, more realistic. When you are picking something to do for a card or for a composition where there is some intent, here there's no intent. I'm just looking at a picture. I drew it the way it was. This is not very tastefully composed. When you want to do something well composed, you have to think about the layout, the placement. So since we've done 2 flowers, let me take one more flower. Before I go to composition, let me take one more flower, this Indian paintbrush. It's a lovely flower. And it, more than the loveliness of the flower, there are many flowers that fit this kind of a structure. Structure is important. Now you've seen a flower which has like petals so intertwined that you can't make out one petal from the other. Then you have flowers where the petal is so very clear, that 4-petal thing we did. Okay, the petals were very, very clear. So what we have done is we've captured the most unique thing about that flower as best as we could. And then we've left all the remaining details to your interpretation of it, right? So the unique thing here was that it was small, pointy leaves, petals, and big, large green leaves. Okay, that was the unique thing about this thing. And everything was in a like a cohesive, bunched up thing. Over here, what was unique about it was that the leaves had this kind of shape, odd shape, and that it was such a big mass of petals, you could not make out the petals one from another. Okay, so we captured that. Now, when we are going into the Indian paintbrush, you're going to see that, see, it is a stalk, a vertical stalk. So we have to get the placement of the stalk. So if that means you have to draw a little bit of a outline for yourself, do that. So I'm going to draw this vertical line. And on this, off this, I will paint my um, flower. So let me go in with the same big brush of mine. Which one was it? There. I'm going to take scarlet and crimson. These are the colors of the Indian paintbrush. Make a puddle of them. So when I do loose florals, I don't usually paint from cake paints. I don't usually. Personal choice, that is. Not doesn't mean you have to do it that way. Because of this business of making a puddle, it is just very time consuming for cake paints. So if you have tube paints and if you have watercolor pans, what they call, those may be a bit easier because of accessibility. There. Okay. Now that I've made this pool, let me keep the picture close by. Okay. So we're looking at this picture here, this single one. And with our big brush, we are going to put in all the big prominent petals, all the prominent petals. Okay. Can you see this? Yeah. So I'm holding my brush quite far and I'm going to press down and give it some shape. There's one there, one here, one here. Dip into the scarlet, then alternately into the crimson. Here there's one coming out like this. There's one small one here. Then there is some funny thing here. 3 petals together. Yeah. And there's one boisterous one there. Okay. We have something going out here. Something coming in from here. Okay. And one loose one coming out. See, I can't get the point very well on this brush. That's okay. Not to worry. One here, dipping in. Crimson over here, little bit over here. Okay. So I've got some basic shapes. Looks okay. Rinse off. Now we're going to go in with green. Sometimes the sap green that we use could be a little too bright. So like I told you earlier, if you feel that it is too light, too bright, and it is not looking very earthy, put the same color that you just now used. Now, for example, you use red, right? Scarlet. I've got scarlet here on my palette. I'm just going to like take one drop of scarlet and put it into my green. Just a drop of it. It's become a little brown, but let me, yeah. And let's put the connections. If possible, while it is wet, because we want the connection to look, and this is going to happen. Clean your brush. Go back in with a little more sap green and join these things. See? Here, there's green. Here, there's green. Small strokes. More white gaps than the picture actually has. So here I have a and something going out here. Now there are some shapes over here which have only green. Put all that in. Now make sure, of course, that nothing is dangling in air. There is no piece of red that is sticking out on its own. Okay, so just make sure that everything is connected. After that, we are going to go in with a little bit of brown, burnt umber, just a wee bit. And put your central stem. Keep it thin. Okay. Now, according to me, this has turned out a little too dark. I feel like my paints are applied too dark. So I can go back in and take off a little bit of my too dark paint. Since it's still wet, I can do these kind of adjustments. See? Clean the brush, go back in and pick up some. Some places it may have dried. You may not be able to pick up, but if you can pick up, you can get a slight difference in, see, where you can pick a little. Getting it? And you captured the basic of a paintbrush. Can you see how much of I've incorporated so much of white space? Now, many people ask, but this much of white space is not there. You're right, it's not there. But because it is loose and because we have not defined each and every petal, each and every leaf, the way it is seen, how do we demarcate them? We demarcate them with the white space, right? So that is why the white space is very important, because otherwise you are going to end up with something like, actually very much something like this flower. Without the white space, it's really hard to see the individual petals, right? And to see that they are actually petals. Now here there was no scope for white space because the whole thing was a solid yellow color. But here we have that liberty, right? We can afford to put in a few white spaces between leaves that we don't see. It's okay. And by looking at it, it looks like an Indian paintbrush. Now, if you take that further, let's look at a composition of Indian paintbrushes. See, same thing, but they are all arranged very strategically. So if you want to make this composition on a card, now I'm going to take a card. I have a card here. I'm going to do the same thing I did here, but I'm going to do it onto a card. I can't just leave it as a stock. I have to see some cohesive composition. So I will now plan. I want to have a stalk coming out from here and one that goes a little higher. Then I want one from here and one little one from the side and maybe one over here. So this looks a little balanced. Okay. At the top of every one of these is going to be a